Now if I get into standing, and this is important especially nowadays because standing desks are becoming more and more popular, and I think that's a great idea. I think we should be moving in that direction. However, if we stand just as long as we're sitting, we're just going to have the same problems of standing. The benefit of standing, I think, over sitting is, one, your hips are just going to be able to be in a more neutral position, and you're going to be able to be a little bit more dynamic, easier in a standing position. So we just want to make sure that we're utilizing all of those benefits by actually being dynamic in a standing position. So let's break down standing variations into 3 different stances. So you have bilateral stance, staggered stance, and then we're going to do things in one-legged stance or a variation of one-legged stance. All right, so in bilateral stance, 2 things that we can do. One is just make sure that your feet are facing forward. Very normally, people will have their feet turned out when they stand, and that's not an indictment of them. That's normal. It's actually more normal to have your feet out than it is to have your feet straight. However, to have your feet straight is a more balanced position for your musculature. So if you can turn your feet so that they're facing forward, sort of like an equal side, what you'll find is that the bony alignment of your feet are more stable to begin with, and it just puts your muscles in a better ability to stabilize you. So that's step 1 here, and then step 2 would be just from the hips. Your hips are right through the groin here. Just roll out, turn your buttocks on, make sure that you're not arching your lower back, and just create this little external rotation in the hips, which also creates a little bit of an arch lift at the feet. All right, so you get a little tension. More is not necessarily better, just enough to feel like your butt is on. You don't want to be grunting. This isn't a strength set. This is just a nice, relaxed, turn your muscles on, turn them off. Lift the arches, let them come down. All right, you do that 5 to 10 times, and just do it frequently throughout the course of your standing. And then in that same feet forward position, we can do what's called shifting, where you shift your weight to your right side, and naturally you're going to let your upper body, the middle of your chest, your eyes, look away. And then you're going to go side to side. So initially start slow with this, and then once you feel you've got it, it just becomes a flow. All right? So the goal is that you're really staying towards the outer edge of your feet the whole time as you shift back and forth. All right? So as I'm on my right, I'm going to be more on the outer edge of the feet, but I don't really want to let myself collapse onto the inside of this foot. I want to stay pretty solid through that nice, medial arch lift as I go side to side. All right, so this is the bigger I get with the shift, the more I'm adding this frontal plane motion, the side shifting into the hips, but I'm also getting some rotation up higher in the trunk and even in the neck. Okay, so this should not be stiff. I'm not trying to fight for motion. It should be very smooth, side to side. So it's a way to just change things up, change the pressure up, and also create a little bit of relaxation throughout your whole body. All right, so then if we go into the staggered stance, again, you want to make sure that one foot's not turning out, that you're starting with a nice standard of feet forward. All right, and start with a wider stance as opposed to being on a tightrope, because that's going to make your balance a lot worse, or it's going to be a lot harder to balance in that position. So you're going to be struggling as opposed to just flowing with this movement. All right, so start about hip width apart, and if your balance isn't so hot, you can go even a little bit wider. Biggest mistake is that most feet will stay out, even if you are told to put your foot in and you think it's in, it usually is out. So take a look down and make sure that it is facing forward. It may even feel a little bit pigeon-toed in that back foot. All right, and then as far as the stance going front and back, you want to start maybe a little bit more narrow, just so your heel is just a little bit in front of your toe. And then what you can do is just shift all your weight to the front leg, and you're just naturally going to unload the heel of the back leg, and then vice versa. I'm going to shift the leg back, and the toe naturally comes up. All right, so you just want that to be a flow. All right, so you're just shifting all of your body weight over the front leg, shifting it all over the back leg. And what this movement prepares you for is actually walking in the gait cycle, where it's a heel strike, shift the way forward to that rollover before I take my next step and I go into another heel strike. So if you're not comfortable with the balance here, then you're going to do some kind of compensation when you walk. Great thing about this is you can shift and do the other side as well. You can look for symmetry, and again, it just changes the stress that you're putting on your body, so you can always be mixing it up. All right, so that's the staggered stance position. You can get wider with that over time to really kind of challenge the mobility of the hip. Make sure that your spine isn't in an extended position, especially as you get your leg farther. You always want to maintain this general neutral position from the ear down to the hip, with the pelvis not being tipped down. All right, and that goes for any of these movements that we're doing. All right, and then the last position could be some version of a supported single leg stance. All right, so a lot of desks have some type of a ledge right underneath them, any of these standing desks. So it can be easy to just put one foot up on that ledge. All right, so now this is, in essence, a supported single leg stance. So I'm putting more weight through my right leg, and I just have some support on the left leg. In this case, I'm using a Bosu. But again, anything that would be right next to your desk, you could just get a little stool and put it right next to your desk so that you can easily switch sides. All right, and again, just try your best to have your feet facing forward as much as possible. I think that's a good standard. All right, because if you're starting out, then everything else, you're already kind of in an imbalanced position, and you're getting yourself stronger and more balanced in that imbalanced position. So if it's a little uncomfortable to have your feet forward, if there's any pain to have your feet forward, turn them as much forward as you can tolerate, and then over time work to get them as straight as possible. All right, and then this is just as simple as adjusting as often as possible. All right, now there's a benefit in a way to lift your foot and get a higher device that you put your foot on as far as hip mobility, but if you're doing work or there's another task that you're doing at the same time, it may kind of get in the way of what you're doing. So don't make any of this stuff too challenging, or you won't be able to do it while you're actually doing your work, and you will tend to not vary your position as much because you only have one position that you're comfortable with while you're doing work. All right, so those are positional variations: sitting in a chair, sitting on the ground, and standing. If you have any questions, you can hit me up at movementprofessional.com. See you next time.